Welcome, welcome, welcome to Intro to Schoology. This should be a really, really fun and good session. So I just want to go through a couple of announcements before we get started. The first one is, yes, you do get a CEU certificate of participation, but only if you're watching us live. So if you're watching us on the YouTube channel, no, you don't get that certificate, but you do get the knowledge. Lucky you. And in the description right underneath the video, if you click show all, you'll get the resource that they'll be going through. So you do get access to that resource. Just go right underneath the video and click show all. So you see our lovely Twitter handles on the screen. This is when you can pause that video and go follow everyone on Twitter. And you can also go to my website, educatoralexander.com, to sign up for my newsletter and all that good stuff. So this is how you can contact me. I'm Dr. Desiree Alexander. I am the founder, CEO of Educator Alexander Consulting, and we are so happy and proud to host this session. So there you go. Take a snapshot of that. You can also find it, of course, everything you can find on my website. But there you go. That's me. Other webinars we have coming up. Next Saturday, we have there's a Bitmoji for that. Jen is the queen of Bitmojis. So if you want to learn how to use your Bitmoji in better ways, how to make your Bitmoji move and dance and all that good stuff, come join us to, I'm about to say tomorrow. Not tomorrow. I'm not going to be there tomorrow. But next Saturday, 11 to 12 Central. And you can get all this information at that same link that you see at the bottom of the screen. And then September 5th, we're going to have 2 webinars. We just haven't done we're just getting the second one set up right now, but it's going to be an introduction to Canvas. So we're going to have that at 1 p.m. Central, but we also have the amazing Inky with differentiating assignments in Google Classroom, and that will be at our normal 11 a.m. time. Then we have Sarah coming back. Sarah just comes and she drops knowledge, and then she comes and she brings other people with her to drop knowledge. It's awesome. I love it. So Sarah will be here with Beth about templates for teachers, and we just had a conversation of like millions of people going to that website, so you definitely want to check that out. We also have Teaching Digitally with the amazing Nadine. If you don't follow her on Twitter, you are missing out. Like, you have to follow her and get all those good resources that she puts out there. So we have her in September. And then Sarah. Like, I'm going to stop getting excited. I'm going to be like, Sarah's coming back, I guess. Like, Sarah's coming back for Intro to Wakelet. So if you have not learned to ride the wave of Wakelet, you want to come back September 26th. And I feel like every other word I say has something wrong with it. Just forgive me. It's early and late, depending on when you went to sleep. But Sarah's coming back again in October for Intro to We Video. So if you want introduction, I mean, she's just techie. She's like, I think she's a robot, but we don't know for sure. Okay, so Intro to We Video, she's coming back in October, and that's the only one in October so far. So that's why she's here by herself on this slide. And then we have 2 coming back in November. We have Nadine coming back for Tech Abilities for Struggling Readers. Then we have Tanya coming to teach us mindfulness for educators. So how to keep yourself centered and how to keep your students centered. So, and she's going to actually do a whole series for us next semester all about mindfulness. I'm very excited about that. We're setting that up right now as well. So if you have come to one of my BER sessions, if not, I do BER sessions on distance learning for ELA. So all of those will be coming back in October. I am going to be posting them all on the website probably this weekend. So keep an eye out for that. And then we will have an evaluation at the end. If you're like, haha, I'm going to go there right now, you're not going to be able to get in. So but I will post it again 15 minutes before the session ends, and then you can go in there, and that's how you get your certificate if you're watching us live. So you don't have to worry about the link. I promise you that I will post it at the end. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point. Remember, we don't want anyone on video except for our amazing presenters. I'm actually going to take my lovely face off of the presentation right now as well. So what they're going to do is share their screen, and then once they're ready, I'm going to be quiet, and I will make sure to look in the chat and all that stuff. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. While one of them presents, the other one will be answering questions in the chat. So Sarah, Alyssa, thank you for being here. Y'all are about to get a treat. And I'm going to be quiet and let you take it away.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
Good morning, good afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks so much for coming today.
You want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Alyssa? I'll go second.
Sure. So I teach 7th and 8th grade social studies at Ross Middle School. We're a little community. It's a fairly smaller district, and it's located northwest of Cincinnati. So I've been teaching social studies since 2001. Met Sarah through, Sarah originally started, she'll tell you about herself, but she taught social studies. We were social studies co-teacher, teachers together, and then and we've done the Washington D.C. trip for the 8th grade for at least, how many years have we been doing it? Co-doing it? At least five or six that we've been doing the DC trip. Sarah is absolutely the tech guru, and I benefit from that. So, yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Alyssa. What a great connection that we've got. Yes, I am Sarah Kiefer, and I also teach for Ross Local Schools. I started in the classroom, 14 years there. The last 7 years in the classroom, Alyssa and I both taught social studies for 7th and 8th grade. We also hooked in. Alyssa had started the DC program a good many years before I joined her, and then you'll find out we're both big history nerds. We love history. We love everything about it. And we work really well together. I'm excited to have her joining in on Schoology because I used Schoology when I was still in the classroom, but I have also shifted roles. I now do technology integration down at the elementary level. So I have been out of practice of using Schoology myself. Alyssa is far more of an expert on that. So down at our elementaries, we actually use Google Classroom. So you bring together both minds, right? So Schoology is so appropriate for kids to use. It's a fantastic tool for teachers. We're very lucky to have it in our district. So Alyssa's really going to give you like all of the good knowledge on this one. I'll be in the chat too, and I'll be piping in. But we really do both love our jobs, and if nothing else, we wanted to do this because we know that there's a lot of new teachers, a lot of districts are now implementing Schoology or maybe another LMS of some sort. And I just really thought that this would be a great time of year. It was like the perfect opportunity. Thank you, Desiree, to kind of share our knowledge. Like we've had Schoology for, I don't know.
It's about 5 years now that we've had it. And I definitely think it's a program you get more comfortable with the more you use it.
So the other thing we want to be very conscious of, we don't want to overwhelm you, but Schoology is a massive program. There's so much to it. So please listen to everything that we have, jot down your notes. You'll get the resource. Desiree's already been posting it in the chat. Feel free to bookmark it, hold on to it. But know that like today in 2 hours, we are not going to make you experts. That's not our goal. Our goal is to help you maybe get up and running and kind of do some of the weaving in and out to like, okay, so if I wanted to look at something like this, or where am I going to find resources to help me out further? Obviously, Desiree's posted our Twitter handles. Tweet us questions. We'll help you out. If you also tag in @Schoology, anybody that sees the @Schoology name could be answering your questions too. So let's build our PLNs. Let's help each other out. This is a year that we're all going to remember. It's like the year that's going to like really force all of us to grow, and our brains are going to hurt. My brain has already hurt this summer. just sinking in all of this. So don't sit here today and go, man, like they have all these tricks, and Alyssa's been using it for a good number of years. I used it for a handful of years. Take some little pieces of knowledge, jot some notes down, and know that you can always come back. Okay, I think that's something that we as teachers, we want it to be perfect from the get-go. And Alyssa, maybe you chime in here.
Yeah.
Your usage now versus when we started.
We were very lucky in our district that our administration is very much with the philosophy of ease in. And so, and I maybe this is the, where unfortunately the pandemic has forced us to dive in. We were very lucky that we were able to ease in with it. The great thing about Schoology is that because it is such a big program, like Sarah was saying, if you do feel overwhelmed, they have a number of instruction guides and videos that will walk you through. And really, if you put into Google whatever your question is and Schoology behind it, usually the first thing that's going to pop up is that Schoology user guide and or a Schoology video to go along with it. So, I have really found that with Schoology, like anything else, until you're in it and your hands are dirty and you're in it every single day, you just don't get comfortable with it until you've been working with it. So let's go ahead and start digging in. So the first thing is that Schoology does have two versions. Schoology has a free version and it does have a paid version called Enterprise. Our school district has purchased Schoology Enterprise. So if you are using the free version, I'll apologize because there are some things that I just assume that are available as features, but they may not be if you're using the free version. It might be, and being someone that I use the enterprise version, I'm unaware of what is not on the free version.
I'm gonna pop in here. Don't stress if you don't have the enterprise version, because that also means then that some of the extra, the higher level, the going deeper, like Alyssa was talking about, you may not have available to you, but get comfortable with the basics and what you do have, because then you can have a great conversation with your IT person, with your curriculum director, with whoever has the purchasing power in your district. If you can come to them and say, okay, I've been using this free version, here's all the things that I love about it, and then see what they can do to potentially help you. With technology, we all want the biggest and the best and the greatest. That's also where we all get very overwhelmed with, and then you don't end up using everything. We are very lucky in our district that we do have it. One real quick, Francisco, just to respond to your question, if you can create what looks like this teal puzzle piece, and we'll talk about like where you'll find that, but that is one indication that you have the enterprise. If you can see this teal puzzle piece when you add a material. So look at some of these things. We're very lucky, like we said. If you can't find it in Schoology, don't fret, don't stress out about it. Use what you can, and then use that as the information to take to your district and say, is it possible? Okay, you're gonna have a much better outcome potentially than walking in there and just saying, buy me this program.
Yeah. Usually if you're signing up for Schoology just as a teacher, you're probably using the free version. If your district is coming to you and saying, here's what we've got, it's likely they have purchased the enterprise version. So that's
another way.
And that's how it came to us, is that our district came to us and said, we've purchased this program. Here's how it's going to go. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna run you through the basic layout. So when you go into Schoology, like if you were in Chrome and you clicked on Schoology, there are two dashboards that are available to you. One's called the recent activity, and this is almost always going to be the default. In fact, I don't know of any time it's not the default. Sarah and I really just recently discovered how to switch that. But your recent activity shows you any updates that are getting posted, any activity you've got going on. So if you have created assignments, and like it'll show you that calendar, that upcoming area that's on the right hand side. If you've got ungraded assignments, it shows you that. I mean, it really is like this is your landing pad. However, if you're trying to find just an easy way to look at your courses, go up there so that you can see course dashboard, and then click on that. And that is a nice way to just see your courses or classes. So any courses or classes that you are enrolled in will show up here. So for instance, when I teach 2 grade levels, I teach 7th grade and 8th grade. I would see one of those squares for my 7th grade. If I didn't tie my 3 sections together, I would see 3 squares for each of my sections. We have in our district, our curriculum director has created a Teachnology, and every teacher in there is enrolled. We're invited, I should say, we're invited to join that. And our district curriculum director then pushes out information to us through that course. So the course dashboard is just a really nice place that we can see all of our classes. The big thing with Schoology though is that Schoology gives you like several different pathways to get to the same location. Like all roads lead to Rome, so like all roads lead to just different places. If you see up at the top, along the top of the screen, you'll also see areas where you can go, including if you click on your courses. That's really the same thing as that course dashboard. Groups, the difference between your courses and your groups is courses are really the classes that you're teaching, or the courses where you're getting information, or like I said with Ross Teachnology, that's a course that we as teachers have joined, like our professional course. Whereas groups are just groups that you have created. So for instance, you can see on Sarah's, we have a group that we created in our social studies department. It says SS for RMS 7th and 8th grade. So this is a group that all of the social studies teachers created, and then we can share resources. So, which is very nice. So if a fellow teacher creates a unit, there's a very easy way that you could share that. And I could say, Sarah, oh my goodness, I am so impressed with what you've got. Can I have it? Can I borrow it? And so she could put it in there, and then I could pull it and use it in my classes. So very nice. Resources, the resources up there at the top, just keep moving over. Right next to group, the resources is huge, because the resources area, think of that as your file cabinet. This is where, if you've been, like you were with me, old school, you taught binders, you have binders full of materials. This is your resource area, are your binders of materials that you can save. There is a personal binder that is yours and yours alone. That doesn't, you don't share anything with it. You can create learning objectives in there. You can download things in there. You can share things. So these are your resources. there's a public area. So if you click on the public resources, these are resources that really anybody else on Schoology has shared, and you can search them. So let's say I'm looking for a lesson on explorers and Christopher Columbus. I could search Christopher Columbus, and anybody who's shared and made public a resource will pop up there. So some of them just populate anyway, but that can be nice if you join a public group. So then you can see what is available, and like Sarah is showing, you can refine it by subject. If you just want to browse, you can refine it by resource type. All of these different filters that you have to just search, or just a keyword search. Underneath public is group. And this is, again, just another place to get to the groups that you have formed. Probably the most difficult thing is trying to figure out sometimes where these go. So like you can see in Sarah's, because she's technology and she works through all these different buildings, she's organized herself with different classes, different the high school versus the middle school, social studies. So you can see she's got a lot of different groups that she's joined into. And then apps, I will be honest, I don't often work with the apps, but if there are apps that you want to pull in, you can access it here. One of the most useful features of Schoology is that in the past couple of years, they have been working more and more with Google to integrate the features of Google with Schoology. And we'll expound more on that as we get into it. But that, if you've got items that you've created on Google, in Google Docs or Google Spreadsheets, you can pull that in from Google.
There's a good question in the chat. She says, can we set public resources, or do we have to go through the filters every time?
So can you set public resources? I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. If you want to search public resources, I think you can. It's really just a matter of searching how you want to search them. So, like, if you want to, I understand what you're saying. Like, can you set them? My guess is that you would have to set them every time. You would have to go down and select, I want to search social studies lessons. I don't know that I've ever been able to like you're talking about like locking your filters in. I don't know that there's a way to lock the filters. Do you?
I'm not seeing anything either. I think it's a search every time.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Okay. So other features that Schoology has, I don't frequently use the tools. Do you use the tools?
The tools might be, some of this might be more because I'm an administrator on Schoology.
Okay.
As opposed to,
I was gonna say, I don't use that often.
Yeah.
The tools that, like when I was talking about the analytics, I use them in the classes, which we can show them when we talk about creating classes. So
should we talk about the right side of our main
definitely want to know about the right side. So the right side, so on the very, very right, if you go all the way to the right, it's information about your account. So if you click on that, you get your profile, you get your settings. You can see that Sarah's in multiple buildings. And this is where you would do any of the things that you do settings wise with any of your accounts. So like that's your account area. The bell next to it is very important. The bell is what will tell you that of what you've got that you need to be aware of. So this is your notifications. This is very helpful to know when you are assigning things, whether kids whether they turn them in. So anytime I put an assignment up there and Sarah's completed it and turns it in, hit submit, I get a notification, Sarah Kiefer completed this. And that lets me know I need to go and grade that. If they do a test and there's an open-ended question and the test is waiting for you to grade it, you'll get a notification that you have X number of ungraded items that you'll have to do there. So the notifications is very helpful in order to know exactly what is getting turned in. It will also alert you if you, I don't know what I was going to say there. Yeah. If you want to, like, if you've been invited to join a group. So
now, I will say, Alyssa, I think the notifications are a fantastic indicator for you as the teacher. Please don't look at that and then feel overwhelmed, because we all teach numerous kids. It would be the same as if you have kids turning in paperwork, like, your stack's going to get bigger the more kids you have, the more assignments that you have. That number on your bell is also going to indicate that. To me, it was always like hey, Sarah, got to do something. We can't push all this work out to our students without expecting them to hand it back in. But I get a lot of teachers that go, oh, that notification on that bell, it's too much. And I'm like, well, but you're the one handing out the work. Remember that they're going to do.
But you can manage that as well. If you don't want to be notified that, you can go into settings and you can manage. You can manage those notifications. So if you're feeling overwhelmed seeing all these notifications coming in, you're able to control what notifications are on. Like, I don't want to see assignment submissions. I get it. I know I need to go in. From a personal standpoint, I wouldn't turn that off. Like Sarah said, it's a useful tool as a reminder to say, I ring the bell. I need to grade this. But if it's overwhelming you and you don't want to see it, you can turn it off. You can turn those notifications off.
And you can see, we're not going to go line by line on each of these notifications, but you can see they have them broken out into chunks. So your academic notifications, this would be, submitting, turning in, sending back out kinds of things to your students. The groups, remember how Alyssa talked about there were courses and then there were groups. These would be groups that maybe you're in a 7th and 8th grade social studies group, teachers, and you're commenting back and forth. Maybe those are the notifications that you don't want. And notice that there's 2 columns. Like, one is getting the notification via email, and one is getting that notification via your mobile. And you can see that I've connected, and some of these I should just get rid of because it's been so long, right? And you can do that. It's because I had the app on that particular device, which as a teacher, like, I loved that on my phone. It worked for me, right? I understand completely it doesn't work for everyone, but you can go through and you can do a lot of customizing with your notifications on here. So keep that in mind. And the more you scroll, the more options that you have. And then at the very, very bottom, please do yourself a favor, make sure you click that save changes. It's not like that Google save where it does it automatically. Make sure that you're aware of the pages where you need to make sure that you click save changes. Otherwise, all those changes didn't get saved.
Yeah. We have a question about, are students able to turn the notifications off? And I would think they would be able to. However, I will be honest, I've never looked at it from a student perspective. Do you know about that, Sarah? If students can turn off notifications?
I think there is some level of ability. It's not going to be the same as the teacher, because again, remember, teachers have a lot more to their side of it. Probably the best way, if you have that specific question, and again, you got to keep in mind, do your students have email? If email is not available to your students, the notification thing doesn't matter, right? If the students have a mobile phone or not, again, keep those things in mind. And some of those, unless you have like a wide group that you know that you're working with, some of that may not even be a potential need for change. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, I could see that, I could see that both students and parents could get overwhelmed with this constant notification. I would have to look at that and see if, from the student side, if they were able to turn that off. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
all right, while we're here, do we want to just look at these couple little?
Sure.
So the privacy settings, you can see a lot of these are locked, that you cannot adjust some of it, and some of it your school, if your school is providing Schoology for you, they're going to have these items in here for you. These are kind of those ones that for a teacher, maybe you're not going to do too much adjusting. Know that they're there, and then when you're comfortable enough, like maybe that's when you come back. But if you're not sure on any kind of setting, any kind of notification setting, any kind of privacy setting, please don't just change. Please talk to someone, or do like what Alyssa said at the beginning, Google it, like what happens if I do such and such, or look in the Schoology resource bank and see if they have something that can guide you to. You definitely don't want to turn off something that you absolutely do need to have on. But like I said, if your school is purchasing enterprise, you probably will not have all that much control of these items. These are probably ones that are going to be kind of baked into your account.
Yeah.
And then I've honestly never gone to transfer history.
Yeah, so at the end of every school year, and we'll talk about this and we'll show you how to do this as we get into it. It's very easy to transfer a whole course into your resources. You've done all this work all year long. You want to make sure that you don't lose it. You save it to your resources. If you just want to make sure that the transfer is complete, you could come here to your account and see it. You will usually get an email notification that that's happened, but I guess if you really want to know, you can check
and
it
then
out.
Finally, the recycle bin, I've deleted them. I've gotten rid of these items, and if I wanted to, I could bring them back.
And this is nice to know that, because I know that I've trashed something and then been like, why did I delete that? The big thing with Schoology is it probably is there somewhere, and it's just a matter of like, I at the end of the year, I have forgotten to transfer a whole course into resources, and then thinking, oh my goodness, but it's the end of the year, and I'm at brain melt at the end of the year, and I just completely forgot to do it. It's still there. So, and we'll show you where to find that if you forget, don't worry, your stuff is still in Schoology. It's just a matter of finding where it is. So,
right.
Okay. So right next to it is the envelope, and the envelope is any communications you've got going on. So these are, if you click on that, those are any of the messages that you are receiving, either people that are sending messages to you, or you are sending messages to other people. Now, the one thing with messages is that they have to be in the group that you're in. So, for instance, I can't message students I have in the 9th grade. Those are kids that went from the 8th grade to the 9th grade. They are no longer in my course load, so I wouldn't be able to message them. Pretty much they have to be in your assigned organization.
Alyssa, while we're here, can we talk about like use cases for this? Because I think sometimes these private messages weird teachers out. And I really absolutely loved being able to message individual students.
Yeah.
And I loved them being able to message me individually and it not being an email. You know, it's through Schoology, it's school stuff.
Right. And it's especially considering that it's Schoology, it's very clear this is school related. So this is a very, I feel like it's a very safe platform to communicate between student and teachers because there is a record kept of it. You can go back and you can see the conversation I've had with little Johnny. So if parents like are wondering like, why are you, well, here's a record. You can keep the record of what we talked about. In the pandemic, this was crucial. When we were shut down 4th quarter, this was the only, I mean, this is how students would communicate with us. It's ease. They're in the platform. They're doing their assignment. They have a question about the assignment or the test. They click on the envelope and they send me the question right there. So it's not having to search for my email and then send me an email. And because they do get, you know, same thing with your notifications. You get an alert of I've got 1 or 2 or 3 messages waiting. It's very easy. It's very easy to see that I've got some messages I need to respond to.
And Alyssa, I like how you said that. Like it reminds the students. It also reminds us as teachers, the parents, you know, anybody that's involved that this has to do with school. It is a school platform. It is a school messaging tool. And I love for our students, it becomes a very simple, all-in-one, your content is here for your classes and you can reach your teachers right here and they can respond to you right here. There is another good question, Alyssa, and I don't exactly remember the answer to this. When you message on Schoology, do you also get an email?
It's however you set your notifications. If in your notifications you say, I do want an email every time I get a message, then Schoology will send you the email. I find that to be very bulky, but I do have it set for on my mobile device. Especially, and again, this is every teacher's different, but I wanted the push notification to pop up if a student sent me a message through Schoology. So I would get a push notification on my mobile device, which that could sometimes get to be overwhelming because I'm sure you guys had this. We had kids doing assignments at 11:30, 12, 1 a.m. And, you know, here I'm getting push notifications. But it was also some connectivity.
Alyssa, I'm going to jump back in here too. Kim is in the chat. She's a high school counselor. And she said, do you have any good tips on here for me? And Kim, I do want to share a conversation that I had with one of our non-teaching staff. It was our school nurse. And she said, you know, if all the kids are using Schoology, she said, is there any way that I can too? And we actually double checked and ensured, but she's also able to communicate with students because she's the school nurse. And so then there again, for people who are not just classroom teachers, Schoology can be that platform, the one-stop shop. And And through this pandemic, through the closure, through this summer, I've really done a lot of thinking and reading. We as adults can handle a whole lot more than our students can. I think it's time that we as teachers, we really do try to simplify and keep everything as easy as possible. I always came with the idea in my classroom that I wanted kids to be spending the time and the energy actually doing the work instead of trying to find the work or to understand what it was I was asking them to do. So the way I would word questions, the way I would word assignments or calendar reminders, really kind of came to the forefront. And keep in mind, like, I was working with the elementary kids. A lot of my connections are still at the middle school, though. So as a high school counselor, if you have access to Schoology, this could be a great place that you could create, you know, a group where you can share out resources for your whole school. You can use the messaging so that if kids need to privately message you, maybe they don't have access to email. I think this could still be a very powerful tool for the counselors, for some of the people who are not directly in the classroom with teachers too. It just might be a matter of finding what is that sweet spot as to what works for you as well in those kinds of situations.
The other big tip I would give you is if you're not using updates, those could be a vital tool for you as a high school counselor. If you look at the top of that recent activity, you can see where it says post, and that is, you could post an update. So for instance, let's say you've got 5 new scholarship opportunities for your high school seniors. We have a group for every single one of our classes. So every student, you've probably seen them in Sarah's groups, that we have a class of, and so you could mass create those. You could do a mass push out to every single person in those classes, and say, I've got 3 scholarship opportunities for all high school seniors. Make sure you stop in and see me. Or if it's digital, you could create a folder for those seniors on a counseling group. You would have to create a group, and then you can either make the group searchable for you, which that could be, you could be opening it up, or what I probably would do is I would create a group and then invite the students as the counselor to that group. And then they don't need a code. They would just get a notification. Is there a risk of them not joining? Maybe, because they have to accept it. They have to accept the join.
Kim, if you also had an appointment with them, like prior to sharing out everything, and you brought them in, whether it's one-on-one or it's in a small group, and say, hey, I'm creating this group and I want you guys all to join, have them pull out their devices right then and there and have them accepted, you know, at that moment. So it's a little bit of, you have to know the students as well as the technology, and then when you can bring them both together, and even if you do have them join, we all know that there's always the risk of them not doing anything with it. But as long as they're joined, they're going to get that information in their account. We have another question, Corinna. If you are an itinerant, which I'm kind of not 100% sure exactly what that means, and you're not a teacher of record for any of your students, I think the key would be on here is if you are in the enterprise version, that you would be connected to those students somehow, or however your account is set up, is if you have that connection to be able to communicate with those students. But since I'm not 100% sure what you mean when you say you're an itinerant with multiple campuses, I don't know that I can fully give you a good answer.
Likely if they're on your caseload, like for instance, because we are on the enterprise system, or on the enterprise version, I don't ever upload my students. My IT person in my building has a list. It will get a list of the schedules, and then will automatically, they'll update the courses for us. So I don't ever generate my courses, and I don't generate my students. That's done for me. So like what Sarah said, this is probably a big one between, do you have the free version? Do you have the enterprise version? If you have the enterprise version, I would say just make sure you're communicating with your IT person and saying, I need to make sure that these certain students are on my caseload so I can make sure I can communicate with them.
And Corinna, probably your first step is make sure you have an account. Make sure you have an account with Schoology in that district. If you don't have an account with that district, then I'm going to say you probably will not. So perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. If your district is using Schoology, just communicate with your IT person that you need to make sure that those students are on a caseload for you, so you can message them.
All right. You ready to tackle
calendar? Yeah. So the calendar is awesome because we've completely gotten rid of all agendas. At least I don't know if they still use them at the elementary schools, but we don't use them at the middle school or the high school because our Schoology calendar has replaced it. The biggest thing and this is for parents, to alert them to is, do you see at the very top? At the very top, it says the date, and then it has a blue link where it says all calendars. The biggest thing that we alert parents is that not only teachers can control this, but students can control this as well, is you can indicate which calendar you're looking at. For instance, I don't want, on my calendar, I don't want to see, I don't want to see anybody's items but my own, what I'm assigning. So, and the students will be able to control that. They'll be able to control, do you want to look at math? Do you want to look at science, language arts, social studies? Or you can look at all of them. What we encourage parents to say is make sure that you can see all of your calendars, because that's where they can get sneaky. And they can be like, I don't have any homework, and they're just in math. And sure, math doesn't have any homework, but social studies does, or science does. So this is the biggest thing with parents, is saying, when you're looking at the calendar, make sure that you can see all of those calendar items. You can switch by how you're looking at it. Do you want to look at the day, the month, the week? What I think is very helpful for kids is to see the month view, and then if they need something in greater detail, to switch to the week view, or to even just click on one of those items. So when you're in the calendar, and if you want to cancel out of that, you can click and add an item. So you can click on your day, or if you're in the month view, you can click on, there should be a plus sign to add it. And then you can click on, is it an event? Like, is it a one-time event? Or is it an assignment? And so you can assign it. You can assign that, is it going to start today? And is it going to end? Will it end? So for instance, especially during the pandemic, I was assigning things on a Thursday and making it due on the following Tuesday. And so you can add an end time so they can very clearly see what time it would be due. You give it a title, you can add in a description if you want to add in some information. And then I don't do anything with RSVP, but down at the bottom where it says me, this is where you would assign it to a particular group. So if I want to assign this put an assignment and put it on my 7th grade calendar, I would put in my social studies 7th or whatever class I'm going to assignment on there. I usually did not want to see it on my calendar. So I would usually click off me because I don't want it on my calendar, but I would want it on theirs. And then I could click create.
Question for you, Alyssa. If you create this as an assignment here, do you then also go out and create the assignment in your course?
This is, Amy, you're correct. It would show up twice if you do it here. So this is if.
Should she pick one or the other?
If you don't want it to show up twice, yeah. But if there's something that you're doing that's ungraded, you might want to come here to the calendar so you can make it show up. If there's something that never has an end date that you're assigning, this is where you could, because yeah, you're right, Amy, it would show up twice if you create it here in the calendar and then create it on the assignments. So yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump back.
Silent reading every night. You can be post to the calendar. I put my daily starters on there because they do them in class, but I want them to see they need to do a daily starter every day. So and that doesn't it's not an assignment that I so yeah, that'd be a great example of it.
All
okay.
Right. There was a question, Alyssa, and it was a little bit back, but now that we've tackled most everything up here, question about the color on the banner going all the way across. If you notice, ours has our district on it. Our district has created this to be the maroon. We as teachers have not done that. I think if you're in a standalone and individual, I believe that banner across the top is the Schoology blue. But I don't know that I've ever seen any way to customize this or to change that.
I don't know of any way, because you can also see that on ours, in the top left, it indicates that we are in Ross Local Schools and we're Rams. I've never put that on there. I think that's likely another indicator that we are on the enterprise system, that it's our district that has purchased the program versus the Schoology Blue. So.
And Kim, if I were you as a classroom teacher, I would not use the calendar to be the place where I typically make my assignments. I would be making most of my assignments in my actual course. Yeah. That would be my preference.
Yeah, but events like what you're talking about, that, yeah, you would create that in your calendar.
Okay. All right. Already, we've jumped away from just to keep reminding of like this, we just kind of screenshotted the main page of our course, and we were tackling this banner up here at the top. So you can already see, like, there's tons of things that you have at your fingertips in Schoology. And now I think, Alyssa, we're getting ready to jump into the bulk part of
the real work. The real work. Yeah.
The real work. Okay. So when you click on any of these folders, it will take you to a new slide when you have our presentation open, and it will give you kind of your top hits in each of those particular areas. We mimicked this because we knew we wouldn't be able to have everyone joining in on our Schoology course. So we mocked it up to make it look like that. We do have this course active, though, in our Schoology class that Alyssa and I are sharing, which is another good thing to note. Like, we're sharing this class, we're co-teachers in this class. That's a pretty cool feature. It's a way where if you have intervention specialists or you have other specialists that need to be a part of your classroom, you can have.
Let's show them how to do that as well. Because if you're wanting to know, go back to the course. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. This one?
Yeah. On the left-hand side, where we didn't talk about this side, but the left-hand side is where you as a teacher have this is where you're going to be interacting with a ton of information, including your members. So if you click on members,
I have to go to our course and do that.
Yeah.
So they can see.
So if you click on members, you'll see that we both, by our names, we both have a little star and a shield. That's because we're listed as the teacher. So if we wanted to make Andy Anderson a teacher, there's a little gear by her name. And if you click on the gear, you can say, make admin. And that would make her an admin. Or so for instance, with my intervention specialists, they join the course. I can see that they've joined the course. I go click on members, and you as a teacher have to do this. And then I make them an admin. And as soon as you make them an admin, they have all the ability that you do to add in tests or quizzes or assignments or whatever. So they're able to interact with any of that. They can also work with the grades. So they will have all the abilities that you do within that. This is also for the question about, can I message people? If you're ever having difficulty up in the messaging, so if you click on the envelope and you're like, I'm trying to email, or I'm trying to send a message to Sarah Kiefer. So go ahead and click on that for me, if you would. And then do new message. Go ahead and click on that. And then you when you start typing in the name, it should automatically pull up who's in your network. And then you would find my name and you would click on it. But let's say I've had this happen where I've been typing in a name and I'm like, okay, come on. They're a student in my class. I know they're in my network, but they're not populating for me to click on them so I can message them. The workaround is right here. You can go ahead and cancel out of that. The workaround is right there. Go to your members in your class. It's a little bit bulkier, but then you can do message. And Andy Anderson right now this is probably a settings here, but because she's not a real student. So we just created Andy Anderson so you could see what it would look like. But if it's a real student, it would say send message. And so that's kind of the workaround if somebody you know is in your network and you're not able to message them. Okay, so where were we at? Were we at getting to the courses?
We're at real work.
Real work. Okay. So one of the things that we put on this slideshow of these resources is if you click on that image there, the creating your course materials, we hyperlink that to Schoology's instruction guide. So if once you're in here and we don't get to things or you've forgotten how to do them, keep in mind, this is Schoology, and they've got very comprehensive step-by-step instructions of how to do this. So if you forget all this, just go to Schoology, they'll walk you through it. So the first thing is just to know how to add, let's just start with a basic add a folder. So if you're in your course.
I'll go to the course.
Yeah, in your course and add materials, you're gonna add a folder. And that will allow you to just create a folder. One of the biggest things that I'll emphasize here is find a way to organize this for yourself. What makes sense to you? Do you have a unit that you're working on? Like for instance, in social studies, I start out with Greece. So I have a folder that I call Ancient Greece. And I'll even put in the title, these are the chapters that Ancient Greece is in, just to let kids know that. And then notice you can color code your folders. So maybe you want all your Greece folders to be in red, or what I wanted, and I put this in there, is is I wanted to be able to have every single chapter a different color. So I have chapter 1 red, I've got chapter 2 orange, chapter 3 is yellow. So I just do it so the kids know that every single chapter is a different color. Again, you can put in a description. You don't have to. You can put in the date if you want, the end date. I usually don't do that with a folder, and then you click create, and that'll create your folder.
I'm going to jump in here because I know probably at least some of our teachers that are watching, you may be starting the year remotely. So you may want to shift your thinking slightly as opposed to creating them by unit, by chapter. And again, depending on your age, depending on what your district is suggesting or recommending to you, what I have seen becoming a very, very popular way of organizing a digital classroom is by the week, so that students, because we know if you are able to go face-to-face and you have students that end up getting sick or quarantined, whether or not it's because of COVID, obviously they're quarantined, if they're just sick with strep throat, or they, are attending a funeral, if you kind of flip the way that you're thinking of your organization and you organize it by the week, it does kind of help allow the students as well as their parents, help their parents go, okay, so I know that you were out this week and this week. What did you miss? So again, thinking of how it works well for you, but I would challenge a lot of teachers, and because I work with little guys, elementary students, I do highly suggest that they organize by the week so that it becomes this very simple, I was out this day, oh, that falls in that folder. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to see. Now, maybe inside of that folder, you're using Grease chapter 2, Grease chapter 3, maybe building in some folders or just individual assignments. So keep that in mind with this closure. It does kind of add a whole different flavor.
I completely changed how I did it during the pandemic. I went from units about ancient Greece to the weekly system, like what Sarah mentioned. And it was for that reason, that it was just far easier to organize it and say, here's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I know especially a lot of districts that are beginning with remote learning. I know in my daughter's district, they're having teachers record every lesson, at least one of those lessons, because they are saying to kids, if you at all are sick, stay home. And so they're just anticipating, knowing that there are going to be more kids out, whether it's COVID or not. Just, say, record your lesson, and to do it weekly, and to organize it by week and day, I think is, that's how I did it during fourth quarter. So yeah, but, and you'll figure that, but organizing it, figuring out which way organizes best for you. So, so once you've got your folders created, okay, and so just really quickly to go back to the folders, you can see it says add materials up there at the top, and just click add materials, add folder. And that's how you get to the add folders. And then you just give it a title, and you're good to go. So for instance, when we created this one, we created a folder and called it The Real Work Begins. So now if we click on The Real Work Begins, now we've got this organized. So we'll click on that, and now we can start adding materials. I put in here one of the folders I created. So you can see this is one I've got. This is what my ancient Greece folder looks like. If you click on it, you can see I've got folders and folders. So I've got chapter 1 on the geography of Greece, chapter 2, chapter 3, whatever it is. And then, so you can create folders and folders. But let's say, now I'm switching to the week version. And so now I want to add, I want to add another item. So you can go up to add materials, and this is where you can add in different items. You can add in an assignment, you can add in a test. If you're using the free version, you won't be able to add an assessment. Schoology has added in this, the difference between tests and quizzes. Tests and quizzes are similar to like what you would hand a kid on paper. So here's a multiple choice test on paper with some matching, maybe some fill in the blank. But more similar to what you would see from a paper version. The assessment is still a test or a quiz. The assessment is more geared to look like a state test. So for instance, in Ohio, what they've done is our assessments here, it's very helpful for kids to use assessments, because then throughout the year, they're using tools similar to what they'll use on state tests. So it's more helpful. There's pluses and minuses of both, though. The one thing our district has frequently been told is that, and I don't know if they backed off of it, because I haven't heard it recently, is that Schoology was eventually going to get to the point where they were only going to be using assessments and not tests and quizzes. So to start converting all our tests and quizzes into assessments, I haven't heard that recently, though, so I don't know what the status is, but it's not difficult to do. It's not difficult to convert them between tests and quizzes, or tests and assessments. It's just one more step, though. So, okay. You can also add files. So for instance, if you have a PDF that you want them to read, if you want to link them to a website, you can add a website link. Sarah, would you go ahead and click that, the add file link external tool? Probably the two most often you would use are file or link. So think of the link is where you would put your URL, or when I do my daily starters, I use a Google form. So I put the Google form here, and I put the link to that Google form here, and then I put the title in. You can also decide, do you want it to show up in the Schoology system, or do you want it to open in a separate tab? So if you want to click it and say display it in Schoology, you can, or do you want it to open a new tab? There's, again, pros and cons of both. When it's in Schoology, you can, especially if you've got like a lockdown browser, like they're taking a test or a quiz and you've got a lockdown browser, if it displays in Schoology, it's in the Schoology system. It's smaller though, because the text is all smaller. If you open it up, you're just sending them to a different website. So, and
be aware, I found sometimes that even if you leave it so that it is displayed in Schoology, it doesn't 100% of the time like that, and it will prompt them, then they have to open up a new tab. So you have to be conscious of what you're posting, just like you would for anybody in any LMS, in any class that you give with students. Be conscious of what you're asking them to do. And again, keep in mind that they're kids, and if you allow them to go other places might be visited than what you're anticipating. So again, it's all that balance of
right.
I need to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Kathy, you have a great question. Yes, we opt to use the automatic syncing in our district. It does not absolutely have to happen. I think the first year or two, Alyssa, correct me, I feel like we were adding students on our own, and then we began using the automatic sync. So yes, your IT people can. I'm not going to tell you that they have to, because that is a job. I am not the one personally that does it. Another colleague of ours does that, but just it's not necessarily as simple as we might like to think it is. So just be aware that this is the time of year that everyone is swamped, including your IT people. But yes, it is in fact possible. It is also very possible that your students can enroll themselves as well. So keep that in mind too.
But Kathy, if you take a look down here under Intro to Schoology, you can see in this green box, it gives an access code. That access code is your course's code. So if you were to go to members, or I would just, actually I would, if I had a new kid that were to come in, first of all, you would go up to, I would have them go up to courses. And then there would be a place, there should be a place where it says, where they would be able to add or join your course, like in groups.
It's over here to the right. Join a course.
Yeah, the join a course. That's where they could put that access code in. We don't, like I said, we don't do that in our district because our district does the automatic syncing.
Which if they're willing to do that, I do think that that is a wonderful thing. Just know then you as the teacher, your hands are tied. You cannot just randomly be adding students if they do the syncing. Again, pros and cons, balance it out. But if your district is doing it, you don't have control.
There would be a code for every course.
Yes.
Yeah, a code for every single course. So for instance, like the Teachnology course, they push that code out to all of us as teachers. And then we could join that by the code. So yeah, you would have a code for every single course. Okay. Where were we? Add materials.
Did we finish up everything that you'd wanted to?
Creating assignments. Oh, discussions. So so one of the things that we are still going to school face-to-face, and we're trying to find ways that we are not going to have the kids work in groups, and we're not going to we don't want them to move, or we want to be able to distance them. You can add in discussions. So you can say, I want them to have a discussion about virtual learning versus face-to-face learning. What do you think? So you could title this, create a discussion. And then again, if you wanted to put some description in there, you could put some description. Are there certain questions that you want them to address? You could put those questions, like question number 1, I discuss this. But you could put whatever discussion in there that you wanted. And you could say, I want you to have this discussion by Wednesday. And you could put a due date. Then you could decide, are you going to grade this discussion? So you could click on, you could click on enable grading. And then you can give it a due date and say, this is not an optional discussion. This is a graded discussion, because this is your feedback. And it can, you can give it a points and let it be credit, no credit. We'll get to this in the grading more, but you will have to give it a category of some kind. And you could create a category that you call classwork or discussions or whatever it is. You could even add in a new category right there. you have to assign it a class period. Again, because we are a Schoology district, those will automatically be put in there by my district. So I will have an option where I can assign it first quarter, first semester, all year. I just have to assign it whichever one I want to give it to. And then
there should be,
if you want to weight it, I don't usually mess with that. And then the scale, or do you want to use a scale or do you want to use a rubric? And we'll talk to you about rubrics when we get to grading, but you can assign it numeric versus a rubric. So if you're going to use a rubric to grade these discussions, you could do that. And then where it says options, you could assign it to the whole class, or you could assign it to individual students. So if you click on individually assign, you could assign it to this could be my first period. I could assign it to my second period. I could assign it to just particular students. So you can decide who are you going to assign it to. And then you would click create. And that would allow you to create discussions that you can either, like I said, and if you don't want to grade it, if you just want kids to have a discussion, like you would say, okay, do a turn and talk. This could be a place where you could have them do a virtual turn and talk.
Alyssa, would you say that this would work whether you're face-to-face or distant? Like if you are doing this remotely because you're not meeting with the students face-to-face, this discussion piece probably could be a very, very valuable tool.
Yes. Yeah. You could use it either way, virtually or whether you're face-to-face.
And notice, because we put a due date on it, it does automatically then show up over on the calendar.
Yeah.
So where we had been talking before about the calendar, you could add stuff there. If you add it in your course and you give it a due date, it also then does very nicely show up on your calendar out here as well.
I know. And then if you click on the gear right there, and you can click the published versus unpublished. So one of the things you might want to do is you might want to just prep things ahead of time and then publish them when they're ready. You can keep things unpublished until you're ready to show it. So you could create that in there, and then it's waiting until the point when you say, okay, now I want you to discuss, give me a minute, I'm going to publish it, go. So, and you have 1 minute to virtually talk.
You can schedule them as well, Alyssa.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you can schedule them. And if you need to go back and edit, you could always just click on edit, and it will take you back to the screen that we were on. And I forgot to add in that question. And now you need to add in a question. You can add that in. So.
And Alyssa, does that work very similarly to assignments? You can publish or not publish immediately.
Yes.
You can go back and edit. You can edit folders. Things like that.
Yeah.
So that little gear wheel is a very important tool to also understand when you're creating your course content.
Yeah.
Okay. And I love the little icons. If you guys haven't noticed these, check out these icons. It gives you, the teacher, but also your students, when they see this green puzzle piece, guys, it's a test. When you see this paper with a pencil, it's an assignment. Have those specific conversations with your students, especially at the very beginning of the year. I think if you're lucky enough to start back face-to-face, one of the almost a fear, but almost just a realistic idea in your head is that there's potential at some point for 1, 5, 10, all of your students to be working from home as opposed to with you in school. And the more you start talking to them and explaining to them, hey, when you see the screen puzzle piece, that might mean an assessment. When you see the 2 little speech bubbles, That's a discussion. I'm going to have you guys talking online to each other. You know, familiarize them. If this is brand new to them, familiarize them with what the icons are. Because chances are, if you are using these in your classroom, their math teacher or their science teacher or their language arts teacher is also using them. So you're all helping each other out, but in the end, you're all supporting your students to understand what the heck are all of these things. So keep that in mind. You know, when you see that little chain link, it's a link. It's going to take you somewhere. It's maybe to a video, maybe to an online article. Maybe it's to a different website that you need to do some research on. This PDF, talk to them about what a PDF is. Again, we as adults assume a lot, and we know what these things are. Our students don't necessarily natively know all of this. We think that they do. Have these conversations, as silly as it might sound, because in a week, if you're told you guys now all have to work from home, having those conversations might be just enough to have plugged in that tiny little morsel of something in your student's brain.
Yeah.
You know, it's like putting it in your little teacher tool belt. Like, I'm going to have these specific conversations with my students from day one. We were lucky that it was fourth quarter. And I say lucky, none of us were lucky, but we already knew our students. We'd already built those relationships. We may not have that this year.
Yeah. We have a question about, do we always do folders? No, I don't. Sometimes, especially with middle school kids, when I do put folders and folders, just like when I'm in the classroom, they don't want to look. So sometimes when I want to get their attention, I put it right there on the front screen because I want them to see it. And I don't want them to give me I can't find it. I don't know where it is. I want it right there. So sometimes I do the fold, and you can always, like what Sarah's doing now, you can always move it later, or you can always unpublish it later. But there are definitely times that I will put things right there on my landing page because I know that kids aren't going to look. And then I'm going to get the tons of questions about where is it. We have a question about, can we go back to discussion and explain the icon next to the published to students circle?
So back to the discussion, explain the icon next to.
So are you talking about when you're creating an assignment?
Icon next to, okay, hang on, let me go in and let's click
my guess is that she's talking about when you're putting an assignment. Click cancel there and go to add materials. Do add an assignment. And then is that what you're referring to right there? The option says require members to post.
This is a very intriguing idea. I know exactly what she's talking about now. There is the ability, and it is just in discussions, that when you have let's do enable grading, where it says to force them to post before. So what it is, and I'm sure as a teacher, you've been a part of at least one or two online discussions to where if you can, you go through and you read what everybody else wrote. You're probably somewhat going to adjust your answer based on what everybody else is replying with. If you enable it so that the students have to post before they can read anybody else's, you're getting what I feel is a little bit more authentic of an answer, because they're going to read, and if they had this whole other idea, they're students, right? They're kids. They don't want to be the one outlier. They don't want to go, well, I interpret it in a different way. They're probably going to go, well, if everybody else is saying that this is the right answer, or that that's the way that things should be, that virtual learning is really the way to go, I really like face-to-face, I'm not going to be the only one that says face-to-face. So they're going to probably adjust their answer. I think there's a place and a time to do both. I think that if you talk with your students and you tell them, I really want to know what your true feelings are, keep it a low pressure situation. Like, this is not going to be a grade that's going to make or break your whole quarter grade, or your semester grade, but encourage them. Like, I want to know, what does Alyssa really think? What is Pam really thinking right now? What is Sarah? And then what you see start happening is the kids become a little bit more comfortable with expressing the real, as opposed to, oh, 6 other people said that they like virtual, so I guess I should also, pick virtual.
Yeah.
Allowing them that understanding that you are a unique individual and you are allowed to have that, but then always asking for that explanation. And then that's where those respond to 2 peers.
Yeah.
Alyssa, I see that you said virtual. I'm curious as to why you said that. Think about those kinds of things as well. It's not just answer and then be done and never come back to it.
Yeah. And when once they have posted, Pam, that's when they would be able to see the other discussions. So as soon as they post, which, they could always just put in like, yes, but, again, encourage them that you want a thoughtful answer. But as soon as they post, they would be able to see everybody else's discussions. So.
And it goes back to a lot of that community building, the relationship building that you're working very hard to do in your classroom, to give them the ability, the strength to be able to be independent thinkers. So keep that in mind too. So this is
Kim, sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
I just say this is the little icon. If it's grayed out, click on it and then it changes. So I love that little feature. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I can come over and I can click. Well, what does that do? What is that when I turn it off? What does this lock do? What do I do when I turn it off? Lock on. You can do all these different things. Like, play around with it for sure. And if you don't like it, cancel. Get out of it. Check it out.
And Pam, where will they see the discussion? That is in that discussion assignment. So it's wherever you place it. So for instance, that virtual versus face-to-face learning, that's where they would see that discussion, is if they clicked on that, they click on that item, and then that's where they would see that discussion thread would start populating as soon as students start putting that discussion in. So this is, again, like, if you just create one of these, and you're going to create a whole class discussion, or you could create small groups and you could assign them to kids, those discussions to small groups of students. So, but that's where they would see that, is once you click on that. We had a question about how students would turn in an assignment. So, Sarah, would you go up to Ancient Greece up there?
Sure.
I think you'll be able to see an assignment that click on that. Yeah, click on the study guide. Yeah. So once they do an assignment, now most of my assignments, I'm using the Google integration. But when they do the assignment and they click on the assignment, they'll get your description. So for instance, here in the description, I said, use this link to open a Google Doc, make a copy of it. I made this one before the Google integration. Complete the worksheet, use your online textbook, then upload the doc here. And then, so that's their assignment. If you're using Google integration, there will be a submit button and they can just hit submit. If it's a worksheet that, like here, this is going to take them, if you were to click on that, it would take you to the study guide I've created. I've set it up so it forces them to make a copy. So this would make a copy. And then they would complete it. And they would do this in Google Docs. So you can see this is like a study guide, a digital study guide that they would create. If you are not using if you're not using Google integration, then in order for them to turn it in, where you see it says submission and received, on their screen, it will say, there will be a button that will say, turn in assignment, or like assignment turn in. I'm not exactly sure what it says on their screen, but there will be a button there for them to click on. A submit. Yeah, thank you, Amy. So they'll click on that, and then it will open up a screen. And unfortunately, we can't show you that from the teacher side, but that's where they could go in. And on our district, you click on apps, which is it'll look just like in resources, the apps button. So go to resources really quick, Sarah. See that apps down there at the bottom? That's what it's going to look like on their screen. They'll have to click on Google Drive. They'll click on that assignment, and then it'll say upload. Or import. I take that back. It says import file. And then they would click import file, and that would turn it into you. So that's how they would submit. Now, what I would do, and again, this depends on if you're a district that's using Google integration, is when you go to add materials, if you could do that for me, click
Alyssa,
add materials up there.
What if I go into a course where I am enrolled as a student? Do you think that might help?
Yeah, if you've got this, do you have any assignments given to you?
I believe that I do.
Okay.
Right here. So this is where I, Sarah, am a student. So I'm not the admin, I'm not the teacher, I am the student. So this is a fake course, so please don't take this as a reflection on any of our teachers. This is just like a trial and error spot. So I'm in as a student. Notice that my whole list over here is much smaller than it was in Alyssa's and my course. Here are the instructions. Please don't do this. There are really no instructions here, but I do have over here my
That's
submission.
their button, and it'll say, hers says resubmit, but if they haven't submitted, it would say submit. So you would click on that button. Yeah, not that one.
Oh.
Click your resubmit.
Sorry.
There you go. And then upload. And then you could upload go to resources.
Was it not? Oh.
Yeah, you got to click on your resources. And then apps. And then you would go to your Google Drive, click on it, click on the assignment, import that file, and then that's it. Then they have submitted, and then you as a teacher get the notification that Sarah Kiefer has created an item and is ready. It's ready for you to grade it.
Now, if you also notice too, this is, I think, one of those teacher things that we do very much enjoy. When Sarah just submitted that assignment, it is almost like the screen cap, like it is that moment in time of what that item is. And as a teacher, you'll be able to see, notice Sarah submitted revision 1, and here is revision 2, and it was well past the due date of August 18th, because today's the 22nd. It also does then automatically mark it late. That's on both the student end and on the teacher end. So a lot of those pieces are built in as long as you're using that due date feature. If you're not using the due date feature, you do still see the number of revisions, But again, this allows your students the flexibility where if you give them some feedback and then they can turn it back in, what you do with the grade is your own business, but it allows the students to kind of show their growth over time as well. I like that idea, and I like that ability as a teacher to be able to do that with students. Maybe not on every single assignment, not on every single thing that you do. And another important thing to note is when I want to submit, because I know this is another popular thing, maybe you're not all using Google at all, or maybe you're using Google Drive assignments and all that kind of stuff. But what if they take a picture because they're doing something on paper? This is the same process that they would do. They would go to submit assignment, click on their resources, their apps. Again, we are a Google school, so they would take the picture, load it into their drive. If they're using their Chromebooks or whatever, you can pull it into your drive from there, and then you'll see that little icon here is going to tell you what these things are. So if I had an image, here's a JPEG that I could upload if I really wanted to. It's the same process. It's possible. So keep that in mind. It doesn't just have to be some sort of a Google file. It could be an image. It could be something else that they're also loading in, and it's the same process.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we've got that one. If we didn't integrate an assignment, can you go to, yeah, you can.
Amy, if you can integrate and use the Google Drive integration, do it. I highly, highly suggest it. It's easier for you. It's easier for your students. They don't have things floating out and around in places and then trying to find them. I do feel like that Drive integration is an incredibly powerful tool for both the teacher and the student. Even if you're just giving them a blank Google Doc and say, write your stuff on here. But then they only have to click that submit button instead of going through I've got to go to resources and I've got to find it and I've got to go to Drive and then I've got to get it there.
Yeah.
It's possible, but I think the Drive integration simplifies a lot.
Let's show that Google integration while we're here. If you want to go back to our course, let's do that. And then we can show that Google integration, because the Google integration is a really powerful piece. If you click on add materials and then you click add assignment, you can see you would click on the Google Drive assignment and then you would find whatever it is that you wanted to. So I want to assign them the study guide. So I would click on that and I would attach it. Now, as soon as you do that, it alerts you. It says this is going to create a copy of your file for every student. And once you create this assignment, then it automatically does create that copy. The only way to undo this at that point is to get rid of the assignment. So say, for instance, you were like, well, I wanted to do Google integration, but now I don't. The only way to undo it is to destroy the assignment, trash the assignment, and to start over again. But here's the powerful part about this Google Drive integration is that once it does create the file, you still own it. You still own that Google document. So and I've done this a ton of times, I notice a typo where I would put a wrong, like usually on a study guide, I'll say, go to chapter 1, section 3. And then I'm like, oh no, it wasn't section 3, it was section 4. You can go into that Google assignment and you can change it, and it changes it on every single student's document, because it's your document. Now, I will say the one item is once they do click on it, and once they have looked at it, it won't change it. So I'll take the back. You can make changes on the document up until the student looks at it and they're working with it. After that, it's set. But the other nice thing is that once you do the Google integration in your Google Drive, Schoology will automatically create a folder in your Google Drive. So not even in Schoology, in your Google Drive, where it will say Schoology. And it'll have your course or the numbers of your course. And then you'll be able to see, and this is without students even submitting an assignment, you'll be able to see their progress. You'll be able to even see whether they're working on it, whether they've looked at it. So for one of our big things is when we were on remote learning fourth quarter is has Sarah even looked at it? She isn't coming to my Zooms. How do I even know that you're even looking at it? So this is the screen that you get. I can see in the in progress if anyone's even looked at it. So Andy Anderson, you haven't even opened this assignment yet. Once she opens the assignment and takes a look at it, I can see exactly where she is. And I can sit and watch her as she's working on it. And then when she clicks the submit button, that will lock the document for her. And that's when you get the alert that she's done and she's ready for it to be graded.
Now, here's another thing, again, if keeping in mind the potential for some of these teachers to be working remotely, being able to see the student work in that moment is a great way to see if you have or haven't done it. It's also a fantastic way because then the Google commenting features also kick in. You could be providing students feedback in the moment as they're working, right then, before they even hit that submit button. It allows you that ability to kind of help guide students. And we all know the students that we might need to keep a closer eye on, might need to provide a little bit extra structure to. This is one of those ways where you don't have to go navigating through your drive, which is a different world, right? Staying in Schoology, in this assignment, pulling up Andy's assignment and looking to see what is going on right now in the moment. Even if it's not due yet, and maybe they worked on it yesterday, you could provide some feedback, positive or constructive. Keep those things in mind. It's not just about being able to see it, but as a teacher, you could go ahead and start interacting with them and providing them those supports and structures.
We did have a question about the photo. What we encourage them to load it into their drive. I would. Usually, even if they're taking a picture with their phone and it shows up on, like, say, their Chromebook or something like that, if they drag that picture and put it in their drive, that's just another layer of protection for them. That if whatever happens with technology and you're not getting it or whatever, they could very easily go back to their drive and say, well, let me try it again. So yeah, I would encourage them to save that picture. How do you get to the Google Drive app attached through Schoology? So if you are adding an assignment and you go to add materials.
I think her question is different. I think she wants to do the initial adding of Google.
Oh, okay.
Carrie, over here on your far left column where it says install your apps, Google Drive will be an app that you install. And you'll have to allow the permissions, approve it, however the wording. I've already got it attached, so it's not going to allow me to install anything. But you can go in and you can get to adding your drive that way. And if you aren't finding it, guess what Alyssa, has tucked in here for our resources. Click on this or click on the instructor's guide. On other slides, maybe we're guiding you specifically to places. And Alyssa, unfortunately, looking at the time, I don't think we're going to get into the grading or the gradebook setup.
Yeah, I don't.
But
I think we're going to
really good that we have the screenshot there. They can click on it and link out to it, as well as resources for working with your materials. There's a lot of things in here. This is just literally a screenshot of what Schoology has on their page. We really encourage you to go out and look at these. Alyssa said at the very, very beginning, doing an easy Google search. That's what your students are doing if they can't find answers to stuff. They're typing it in Google. Use it to help yourself out too. Schoology, how do I integrate Drive? Schoology, how do I add Drive to my apps? And chances are, like Alyssa said, that top return is going to be most likely the Schoology answer to it. So you know that it's going to be a valuable, or scroll down and look at the third one that finally says Schoology.com, right? So use these resources to best serve you. And we've got about 10 minutes left. So if you have questions.
We do have a couple questions. Pam, you can provide on-the-spot feedback. Again, another very valuable feature with the Google integration is that it's a Google Doc. So anything you can do in Google, you can, you're going to be looking at it just in progress, which is, so if you click on the in progress, and even with virtual learning, you could click on your every single student and see where they're at. And just like any Google Doc, you could add comments or, whatever it is, just like you would any Google Doc. And the nice thing is it's all embedded right there in Schoology. So you don't have to go and try to find everybody's and click on them. Yeah.
And keep that in mind for your students. I have teachers ask sometimes too, in the Google Classroom piece, can they go to their Drive and can they find these assignments? The answer is yes. I don't recommend it though. Tell them, go to Schoology. Go to Schoology. Find the assignment. Find your Greece chapter. I'm sorry, Alyssa, I don't remember what it was.
Find your Greece study guide.
Find that assignment and go there. Click on it right there. Don't worry about navigating out into your Drive, because again, if you have students going out and navigating into other places, they might land somewhere where it's not very helpful at the moment. So coach them, teach them, instruct them. Come here to Schoology. Find your work, follow your due dates, message with me, ask questions, complete your work, submit it through here. Because again, if we're in a remote situation 100%, or they're out for 2 days because they have strep throat, if you can coach them that from the beginning, it's going to pay off in the long run. I know it feels sometimes aggravating at the beginning, but the kids don't know what they don't know, and they don't know how to do things until we instruct them how to do them. So use this tool to your benefit to help facilitate that.
Yeah. I think Schoology is, Pam, to your question, I think Schoology is a one-stop shop. So I think it's easier as a teacher to grade and to comment right from Schoology. Now, if you want to expand it out, again, just like anything that you're in Schoology, you can look at it in Schoology, you can look at it outside of Schoology.
Alyssa, I think she's said Google Classroom. Google Classroom is a whole different digital classroom program. If you meant Google Drive, yes, go to Schoology, don't go to Google Drive. But Google Classroom is a whole different digital classroom setup. If you have the choice between the two, that's going to have to be a whole bigger conversation. What are your teacher counterparts doing? What are your colleagues using? I would say everybody could be using the same thing. That's going to benefit your students and your parents far more than if you choose Schoology and the teacher next door uses Google Classroom. But those are things that are beyond our control. I would say that Schoology is great as you get older with the kids. Google Classroom, I think, is perfect for the younger students. Schoology could absolutely be used with young kids, and Google Classroom could absolutely be used with older students. But that's where a whole different kind of conversation would need to take place, as opposed to us telling you, do this or do that. There are a lot of other factors that will go into that.
Yeah. I think we have about 7 minutes left. Let's see here.
Do you want to briefly talk about the gradebook?
So one of the first things that I would do is go to the grade setup, not the grade book, the grade setup. and I do this every single year because you will have to do this in order to assign an assignment, is you have to have categories. And so as soon as my classes get loaded in, this is what I do, is I go to my grade setup and I add in my categories. You can see we've already added some in there, but in order to add them, you would just click on that. It's got a plus sign and it says add right by categories, across from categories. And that is where you would add your categories. Again, it could be homework, classwork, discussions, tests, quizzes, whatever it is. But you would just give it your name. Do you want it to calculate by points or percents? And do you want it to drop the lowest? Do you want it to drop the lowest 2 grades, the lowest 3 grades? Whatever it is that you would want. If you don't want it to drop anything, just you leave it at 0 and then you can click create. If you do want it to calculate by percentages and by weights, so say for instance you want to weight your tests and quizzes, once you've created your categories, then you can go into where it says Gradebook, periods and weights, and you would be able to, you're gonna have to click weigh categories up by the categories. You have to click on that button, and then you could change the weights in there. So say I want my quizzes to be 40% of the final grade, you would just change it. So change it to whatever it is, and then you can calculate it by percentages. And then your gradebook scale. Usually I don't mess with this one. Again, the gradebook scale. Are you going to do numeric, or are you going to do A's, B's, and C's? Usually I leave it on numeric because my district has a grade scale that we load in. We also use Progress Book in addition to Schoology. So we also have that as another piece to it. So we don't actually use the Gradebook. But you could set it that way. And then what columns do you want to look at when you're looking at your gradebook? You can decide in there what you would want to see. And then you would just click your save changes once you've indicated which of these items you want to see in your gradebook. And then once you've got your grades, your grade setup complete, then you can look at it in your grade book. Also here in the grade setup, before you click, oh, sorry.
I'm going back.
If you want to grade by rubric, your landing spot is scales, but up there you should see rubric. So click on rubric.
Over here.
Yep, up there at the top, the rubric. You can see I've added in some pre-made ones, but you can always add from scratch. So if you want to, like, say you do a project and you're going to grade it by rubric and not by typical grades, you could put in there, I want to grade by rubric. And you would add in a rubric. So click on rubric. And then you could give it a title. Like I have one that I call general essays. So for instance, when I'm doing tests, I can assign this to a test item. And then you can put your criteria in. You can put this and leave this as detailed or description, as much description as you possibly want. Add in different criteria. You can change that scale. It doesn't have to be 4, 3, 2, 1. You can change it to be 10, 7, 5, 3. You can make it whatever you want. And I've done that. I've on different rubrics. Sometimes I want the the content to be weighted higher than the front slide. The first slide. So
all right, Alyssa, I'm going to jump in because we do have a question I think would be great for you to answer, and we've got to give Desiree 1 minute. Can we make it for all classes? Like, so you can reuse rubrics for more than one class, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yes. So once you create your rubric here in the grade setup, once the rubric's here, then you can apply it wherever it is that you want. You can apply it to a specific assignment. I've even applied those rubrics to specific items in tests. So like, for instance, when I create my tests and quizzes and I want item number 1 to be an essay question, I'll put the essay question, explain what was the cause of Native Americans dying because of European contact. Elaborate on that. I grade that by rubric and not by points. Sorry, my dog's going crazy.
Well, Alyssa, on that note, we do need to wrap up. There are a few questions maybe in the chat that Alyssa, as Desiree's doing her wrap up, like if you can answer some of them, please fill out that evaluation. I know Desiree's posted in there several times, but we do appreciate that feedback. So Desiree, thank you, Desiree, for letting us.
Thank you.
I'll stop sharing my screen now.
All right. This was so, I feel like we can go on for like 2 more hours, quite frankly and honestly. But thank you so much.